Hello ladies and gentlemen, Top Hat Gaming Man here. This week I have decided to continue the trend on my channel of looking at cancelled games consoles, since everyone seems to be enjoying this subject so much. 2 weeks ago I went through the history of the cancelled Panasonic 3DO M2, and last week I covered the Sega Neptune, which was set to be a standalone version of the Sega 32X. This week we are going to be looking at another cancelled Sega console, known as the Sega Pluto. Last week as well we already went over the fact that Sega used to name their projects in development after various planets within our solar system. I find the cancellation of the Pluto particularly ironic though, as it would have been several years later, in 2006, that the actual planet Pluto would get cancelled too, losing its planetary status altogether, due to the fact that the pathetic little ball of rock is incapable of completing its own orbit. This was a massive blow to American astronomy, since this was the only planet in our solar system's history to be discovered by someone in the USA. So now the poor USA still has no balls to call its own. The mysterious Sega Pluto surfaced completely out of the blue twice in 2013, including being picked up by a young man in America at a boot sale for only $1. This young man would later come along to become another victim of that monster we like to call the internet, but I'll discuss that in more detail later in the video. Before we get to that, let me take you back to 1995. It is a bountiful year for some, and the Super Nintendo was still more or less reigning supreme with delightful releases such as Terranigma and Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Conquest. Also this same year, the Sony PlayStation had just been released and included launch titles such as Rayman, Destruction Derby and Suikoden, all games which are still beloved today. The Sega Saturn in its infancy was also enjoying its own high quality releases, including the likes of Pan's Dragoon, which would lead on to the later creation of one of my favourite games ever, Pan's Dragoon Saga. The Sega Saturn really is a great little system, and I still feel the platform deserved a lot more attention in the West all in all. Anyway, once again drastically moving forward in time to April 2013, a former employee of Sega revealed an unreleased variant of the Sega Saturn on an internet forum known as Assembler Games, though there wasn't a great deal of information released at the time. The console turned out to be the little known Sega Pluto. This console itself weighs in at just under half a stone and features a top loading disk drive, a flip lid as well as a cartridge slot for extra memory. Overall, the system was planned to be an updated, new and improved version of the Sega Saturn. The main difference between the Sega Pluto and the Sega Saturn, however, is that this came with an inbuilt netlink, allowing for the perusal of websites. On the Saturn, this had been an add-on you had to purchase in addition to the console to be able to use. So for the people who are big fans of this, the built-in netlink would have been a huge selling feature. So let's be honest, this would have been great for the Japanese market. This netlink would have made the Pluto one of the first ever consoles with a built-in modem. Also, it isn't fully known, but it might be inferred that the 5 games that had been previously compatible with the netlink possibly could have been played online on the Pluto too. These games included Daytona USA, Duke Nukem 3D, Virtual Cyber Troopers, Saturn Bomberman and Sega Rally. Okay, well that's enough about the system for now. Let's go back to the story of the young man who was fortunate enough to have been able to stumble across one of these bloody things in the wild, to only later be villainized quite possibly unfairly by the internet. Grr. The date is the 18th of April 2013. A young man known online as KidVid666 uploaded a video on his YouTube channel whereby he explains he found the system himself between 5 and 6 years prior and had been holding onto it on the basis that he wasn't really sure what it was and had no idea it was only one of 2 systems that were known to exist. He understood that the platform was a variation of the Sega Saturn on the basis it had the logo on the top of the console, but apart from that, he knew nothing else. In the video, he then goes on to turn the machine on to demonstrate that it works and that games will play. He finishes by saying in the video that he doesn't know what he's going to do with it and was considering selling it on eBay. Fast forward to 2015, and this was where all the controversy started. On GameGavel, he listed the item at $1, however had set a stupidly high reserve purposely so it wouldn't sell. The reason he did this was because he wanted to be able to gauge the value of the item. Now, let's be honest, if you had a unique item that you wanted to sell and there was no other way of being able to find out the value of the item, what would you do? I'm not saying he was right to do this, and his follow-up actions after this make the situation seem worse, but let's explore this and see what we can glean from the situation. Now, on GameGavel, online sources indicate the auction had finished at approximately $7,600. This means the reserve would have been ridiculously high for the system to not be let go of at that price. This wasn't a one-off incident though, as the same thing then happened on the eBay listing, except this time the auction had allegedly finished at $15,500. Yet the item still hadn't met the reserve price. It was at that point that the internet became angry with KidVid666, as they felt that he was being a greedy little bastard. KidVid666 is alleged to have said that the reason the sale didn't go through was because the buyer had to back out and the rest of the bidders who had made offers were given a second chance to win the console. Coincidentally, none of them agreed to purchase. He goes on to further say that the reason he wanted the best possible price was because he wanted to give the money to his parents. Apparently these days the Pluto is now sitting unsold in a secure location. KidVid666 may or may not decide to resell again in the future, but allegedly advised that he felt somewhat jaded by the reaction of the internet over the whole situation. Indeed. So ladies and gentlemen, what do you think of the Sega Pluto? Are you at all disappointed that this platform never saw a retail release? What do you think of KidVid666 and his story regarding the failed sale of the system? Let me know what you think of this whole bloody scenario in the comments section. Yeah! Don't forget to hit the subscriber button for weekly content just like this on this very channel. So, subscribe to Top Hat Gaming Man, subscribe to Top Hat Gaming Man, subscribe to Top Hat Gaming Man. Yes, do it now. Ooh. Thank you for watching today's video. If you would like to support this channel, you can help me out by becoming a supporter on Patreon. Shoutouts to Carl Johnson, Shizuka Kobayashi, Richard Clark, Greg Hooper, Sint Spaces, Kevin Fahili, David Mountford, Andrew Bazansky, Agnes Garcia, Edward O'Reilly, Peter Dawn, Retail Archaeology, and all of my other patrons. You people really do make making content just that little bit easier.